By the beginning of 1958, the United States and the Soviet Union were deep into the Cold War and continuing to develop new, more advanced nuclear capabilities to send mass destruction across the globe. While the Soviets had just successfully launched the first rocket into space a few months earlier, demonstrating their ability to quickly strike the U.S. with this new technology, the U.S. was still reliant upon a fleet of long-range bombers carrying nuclear payloads. Aircraft accidents were common during this time, resulting in multiple nuclear-related incidents, commonly known as broken arrows. It wasn't until an incident near Tybee Island, Georgia, however, that the term irretrievably lost was added to the lexicon.
First of all, I've become kind of a magnet for this because I became involved in it in 1998, and that was the 40th anniversary of this occasion in February of 1958. So this was a training mission with a B-47 out of Homestead, Florida, that was flying a plan similar to an attack on Russia. It was all done. They were wrapped up and headed back home to Florida. They were intercepted in another training exercise by the Air Defense Command of the United States Air Force so they could train on intercepting Russian bombers. The problem was that one of the fighters' radar malfunctioned and he struck the bomber. The bomber turned as he made an emergency descent on fire, about to lose control, about to bail out, with a nuclear weapon in the bomb bay. He turned and went to the southeast, direct to Hunter Army Airfield on the south side of Savannah, and was vectored for an emergency landing. They took the airplane out of Wausau Sound, which is just south, about 4 or 5 miles, of Tybee Island, the Savannah Beach. He just made the command decision to jettison the bomb. He had decided that he could not control the airplane. There were a lot of problems with the runway at Hunter. It was under construction. So his navigator jettisoned the bomb outbound to the east over Wausau Sound. They then turned toward Tybee, turned west, and landed safely at Hunter. It was 2 o'clock in the morning or thereabouts, so most of Savannah slept. There was no explosion of any type. Nobody knew it happened until they read about it in the newspapers the next day.
The story of the bomb with me personally goes way back to when I was 8 years old. I'm 8 years old. We spent all our time in the river on the weekends, and all of a sudden one weekend we went out, and there were Navy cruisers and boats everywhere, and there were like helicopters, and there were military everywhere, and they wouldn't let us go certain areas around Wausau Island. We couldn't go to where we usually go around and all these things. And I remember seeing like a herd of Navy divers. Nobody knew what the details were. And then the whole thing just kind of went away. And years later, many years later, I was working on documentaries, military aviation documentaries, and we went to the National Security Archives at Georgetown University, and we came across documents about lost nuclear weapons in the archives. It had been declassified and sanitized. And all of a sudden, there's one that says right there in black and white that the Savannah weapon was a complete weapon. That particular piece of paper was generated by a congressional committee, U.S. Senate, in response to lost nuclear weapons in foreign countries. And this document is one of those pieces of paper that states there are two, complete weapons, and one of them is in Savannah, Georgia. So there's no doubt in my mind that it's there.
It is noteworthy that all the territory in the vicinity of where this bomb was dropped, which is a remote marshland and island, is owned by the U.S. government. It's been made an area where you cannot do anything but transit. No digging, no anything but fishing and enjoying the beaches that are out there. No one disturbing this.
there was a time, early 2000s, I guess, when a lot of the local newspapers, the city of Tybee, wanted people to take a look at it again. It's like 2000 or something, and asked the Air Force to do it based on the report that the Air Force put out in 2001, and the diagram on the back page. It's sitting, right above the aquifer in the sand, 50 feet of sand, down about 15 feet in the sand and about 45 feet above the aquifer. And that is the official U.S. Air Force document that says that. If you read the report, the 2001 report, it's just like, oh, it's all right, just leave it there, it'll be okay. Well, fine, but really? I mean, is that really it? In my mind, I'm more about making sure it doesn't spread plutonium in the aquifer. I mean, that's my big concern. And a lot of times, what happens was, every time there was a concern, the government would show up and they would put on the, lack of a better word, dog and pony show, and fly around in an airplane and say, oh, it looks okay to us. When the real deal is they know exactly where it is.
When this came up, there was a lot of research that was done and analysis done to determine whether or not this was an issue or a cause for concern, and the determination was that it was not anything to be worried about. I believe that if it was a threat to public health or safety, if there was a very real risk of a nuclear bomb going off that could kill thousands or tens of thousands of people, that something would be done about it. The government looked into this issue, and the determination was there's nothing to worry about. People rightly have a concern about it, but I trust the federal government that there's not a serious problem with it.